Wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, in your line of work, I would imagine living through a pandemic was probably a pretty seismic event. So, talk to me a little bit now that we're getting into a new year, how you got through that pandemic period and how many waves it created for you that you still feel today.
So, such an interesting question. Um, I transitioned out of a 20 plus, almost a 30-year career during the pandemic. So I had owned, I was a ballroom dancer,
Yeah.
swing dancer, country dancer, and had been won all kinds of awards, et cetera, and had owned a studio for, at that point, and I think it was about 13 years.
Yeah.
And we had just moved to a new location, and it almost tripled our space. So we were 2.5 times the space, and we had our grand opening in March of 2020.
Oh,
Yeah, so that didn't go so well. We literally opened one weekend and closed the next for the pandemic. And what was interesting about that is I knew that my trajectory was towards leadership coaching, and I have a background in spirituality since I was about 11. And that's been driving my life of really stepping into what does that mean? And one of the things that I realized about a year before the pandemic was that it was time for me to stop leaving that on the side, and like I would do my life and have my spirituality, and very few people knew that never the twain shall meet type of thing.
yeah.
And just before we moved the studio, one of the things I had said to my team, I had a team of about 8 people, and one of the things I had said to them was, I know that I'm meant to do more leadership stuff and bring people to a place, an inner place, right? Like we do the outer in this world so well,
Yeah.
and we're really disconnected from our inner. And I asked them, I said, I'm actually, instead of moving, if you guys are interested in moving, I will support you financially and as a business coach and all of the stuff, right? And it was quite a move for all of them. And they were like, yeah, we want to do that. So I knew that I wanted, the whole working in your business versus on your business.
Yeah.
So I knew I was done working in that business, and then I was going to support them and do all that stuff. Well, obviously the pandemic, we moved, we renovated the space, put $100,000 into it. Just, I mean, like we were all in,
Yeah.
and then we shut down. And I found myself back in my business because, the buck stops here when
Yeah.
you're the business owner.
Yeah.
So I did that for about a year after the pandemic. We actually made it through the pandemic
Yeah.
thanks to the PPP and the loans and all of that stuff. And it, I, a lot of my team members had to go get jobs,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they were looking for something part-time so that they could also still work at the studio. And they found like their ideal full-time jobs. And
Yeah.
so suddenly like I said, I found myself back working in that business. And so I had to make a choice.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. And I think that that's a lot of us found ourselves in that place. So if we have to make a choice.
Yeah.
And so the inner work that I'm talking about of like the soul searching of, well, I can do this. I've proven that I can do it. I'm successful at it. And is that all there is to life?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where is that choice coming from? Is it coming from a place of lack, of scarcity, of like, oh my God, I have to do this?
Yeah.
And I found myself there. And it's like, no, you know what? I want to be an example for doing it differently.
Yeah.
So I stood up and I made a change, and I said, no, we're going to do it differently. And I closed my business with a year and a half left on my lease that I knew I needed to pay, and lots of debt,
Yeah.
and pulling stuff out of my retirement fund. And I said, you know what? My internal, like my mental health, my physical health, all of it is worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna make the change.
So let's get into exactly what you do on a daily basis here in 2025. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade school kids. It's career day, third graders, 10, 11-year-olds. And one of the kids in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I tell them that I help them to create their dreams.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream? Was it dancing?
No, I didn't even know about dancing in third grade.
Okay. Okay.
So what I wanted, I went through a couple of different things. I wanted to go into the Peace Corps and save the world.
Yeah.
That was my thing, right? Like I
Yeah.
think a lot of us are in that help, like we just want to help.
Yeah.
And yeah, I literally tripped and fell over dancing when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And after college, I had gone to school. I got a degree in, I went to an unusual school where I got to design my own degree. So it
Yeah.
was called cross-cultural diversity, and it was a mixture of social studies and different world, French and like exploring the world through different art forms. So it had studio art and sociology and languages and that type of thing. Um, when I got to college and I was pre-med, and I hit my first molecular biology, I think, and was like, oh, this is so not me. And
Yeah.
then I went into math and I was like, this is so not me. And it's like that searching for who am I?
Yeah.
What does it mean to so I started to look at the bigger picture of, okay, so if I were wanted to go into the Peace Corps and save the world, what does that mean? Like
Yeah.
the deeper level of it, that's the surface level of it.
Yeah.
And that's important. And so in front of a group of third graders, it's like I see myself as helping people to live their life mission. I think that we're all here on the planet for a reason. And when we step into that reason, then we are serving the way that we're meant to serve. And we need people to do that because for every problem we have on this planet right now, there's a solution sitting in somebody's heart and mind that's
Yeah.
on the planet right now.
Yeah.
But we're so busy like poof, 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 doing all this other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were the seeds, the foundational seeds? Take me back to your childhood. What made you get into knowing that this was your mission at this point in your life, helping people, coaching them to get to a better place, finding their dreams? How did all these get planted and become who you are?
Mm. I mean, it's messy,
Yeah.
right? Like life is messy. We want it to be this contained, like logical, linear, like, oh, it was because of this, and this. And it's not, I haven't found that it's that clean.
Yeah.
So, like my dad left when we were little, and it created like all the drama and trauma in me. And I'm never gonna get married. I'm never gonna do this. I'm never gonna do that. And I did get married and I love my husband dearly. So obviously it's like I think that we go through those things, that there's a lot of stuff put in our way so that we get to find the gold and the treasure that's on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that my dad leaving was a big thing. He was also a very, very successful businessman. And when I was very young, one of the things that was going on was my grandfather was, I had three, there were four of us that were all around the same age, my cousins, my brother, two male cousins, a brother and me. And I had very short hair, shorter than it is now.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to be one of the boys, and I never wanted to be a girl growing up.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to get in touch with my femininity and what that means in a very patriarchal world.
Yeah.
And so there's that, and the feminine inside of all of us is the piece that we're kind of talking about, right? Like, what is the inner? Where is the unknown? Those are all the quote unquote feminine aspects that, um, again, the gift for me of being in that battle with myself, of that like working through that is to have found this really and I know it will continue. And right now, I also feel like I have a lot more of balance between those, integration of my masculine and my feminine, rather than the anger that I had growing up of like, and anger is great because it fueled me, it fired me, right?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of success, a lot of all the outer stuff of like, it's like I can point to that and be like, yeah, I did that. And now it's a lot more like, oh, interesting. There's another side to it too.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Who's been an inspiration? Who's been that hero bedrock for you in your career and in general?
I have a couple of mentors. So, are you familiar with Rumi?
Yeah.
Oh, great,
Oh,
a
yeah.
13th century poet,
Uh-huh.
Rumi.
Yeah, absolutely. Read his work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful stuff. He's
Yes.
somebody like up on a bigger world picture, like somebody out there that everybody or a lot of people would know. Rumi inspires me, and every day I love working with his stuff and reading it. And people like Steve Jobs
Yeah.
inspire me. On a personal level, I've had quite a few mentors and people that I work with. One, Roger James Hamilton, has been a business coach of mine. And my spiritual coach, I've been working with him for 30 plus years. His name is Daniel Goodenough,
Yeah.
ironic name. And so he's been, I continue to work with him, and he is all about life mission and helping people to wake up to the why that they're here. So you can see that there's a synergy there, right?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. How do you find that balance? You're dealing with people, there's heavy stuff that you're dealing with. You got to give a lot of yourself to help them get to their place that's better. But you're a human being that needs to develop yourself. How do you find that balance? What's your motivation every day to do all of this in the best possible way?
Interesting. So I think I don't think of it as giving of myself. So there, how do I explain this? Um, there is that paradigm of we have to give and it takes from us, right? So it takes a lot of energy and effort. I think that when we live in that mindset and that paradigm, then it costs us something to show up every day. And I think that that's a that's a lot of the journey that I have gone through in my life of what does it look like to show up every day that feeds me and feeds the other person. And one of the things that my coach Daniel says is that you can't stay in a place that's not yours for very long.
Yeah.
Like, what he means by that is we can do anything. I mean, like all of us are so talented. We're such amazing beings, and we could literally do anything.
Yeah.
And there is a cost to it. And I think that's what you're speaking to is like then we feel drained and it takes a lot out of us. And when we are in that place of for ourselves where we're doing what we came to do, it feeds us. And we can't wait to wake up in the morning, every morning, and like, what do I get to do now? And it sounds Pollyanna-ish.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is that the people that we most idolize are often the ones that are doing that because we look at them and we're like, how do you have so much energy? How do you do that all day and not be burned out? And they wake up and they're like, "Boop," right? And they're excited for the possibility of the day. And the reason for that is because they have either understood and worked to that place where now, okay, like I know what it means to be me and to do what I came to do on the planet, or they actually had that awareness coming in. There are a few people that I know that are like, yeah, I just knew that that's what I was meant to do.
Yeah.
And I think that they're also here to inspire us.
Yeah.
But
So I'm curious, was there a moment that you had where you knew this was your calling? Where you kind of had this idea that, of all of the things that you've done career wise in your life, in this new incarnation, was there a moment or was there a client?
There was somewhat of a moment. When I turned 50, I decided that I was going to take myself on a pilgrimage. And so I went to India, Tibet, and Nepal. And that entire year was a preparation, an inward and an outward preparation year for my 2 weeks. And I ended up being detained in China. So it ended up being an extra week, which was a whole interesting story. Um, and that that year of commitment to myself is basically what I told myself was I was going to stop playing small and stop futzing around
Yeah,
and really step in, all in.
yeah.
Like no more like, oh, but this, no, but that. And it wasn't easy and it changed everything.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into an 18-year-old version of you. You can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you give that young version of you?
I I would tell myself that there are inflection points and that's one of the things I realized is I had an opportunity to step into this version of me multiple times
Yeah,
in my life. And I chose to stay asleep. I chose to live somebody else's dream. I chose to buy into the the outer culture of telling me this is what's important.
yeah,
And I would just, it wouldn't, I wouldn't tell myself what to do. I would just give myself that there are inflection points. Be aware of your choices. And
yeah,
not that any of them were bad. I appreciate every single choice that I made because it's made me who I am today. And I do wonder, it's like, if I had chose that differently, I wonder where I would be today.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of
Speak.
interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's totally interesting. There was a movie with Gwyneth Paltrow in the 90s called Sliding Doors, and it was kind
Oh.
of this if you would have made one little speck of a decision, how much your life could have changed. And it's the complexity of the human mind. So of all of these choices, of everything that's happened in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Oh, I think I'm proudest of the fact that I haven't stopped. Like there's this there's this belief that you hit a certain age, like we go to school to learn and then we graduate and then well learning's done, right?
Right.
We're supposed to have it. We got it.
Yep.
We learned it all.
Yep.
And then we do our businesses and we get to success and we're done. We're successful. Boom, period, end of sentence. And that's not ever been a part of my reality. And I'm really grateful for that and also proud of it that society's beliefs didn't kind of influence that and say, yeah. And I shouldn't say it like that because it did actually. There's been a fighting for this, there's more. It's like I'm in my 50s and in traditional culture, it's like, oh, I'm on the backside of life.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I plan to live until I'm well into my hundreds. I'm thinking maybe 200, right?
Yeah.
And what if and people always look at me like, oh, well, that's interesting. I'm like, well, what if I'm the guinea pig that can actually do that? Because there are people out there who are 120 and they're like a friend of mine, she's the one who started the 130 Club. So we're going to live until we're 130 and then we're going to be hit by a bus. So we don't go through that whole old age thing. And when I look at it and I'm like, okay, that means I'm only halfway through my life. I'm not on the backside. Like this whole concept of things are done. So I think I'm proudest of the fact that it's like, no, I'm just getting started. I am just getting started. And it's an exciting road in front of me.
That is interesting. I'm 52 and I've thought about that. And I never have, I don't consciously think about that. I think age is a number that just sets into motion some nefarious things for the human psychology. But there is a part of me that's like, well, I'm going to really, I love doing things. I love being out in the world doing things. And I'm going to miss it when it's gone. And it's like, it's the first time those kinds of like old guy thoughts have gone into my head. But it is good because you can create this manifest destiny. I've met so many people that have been an age that I never thought they were, and they were much older and they're very active. And it's all about not giving up because at the end of the day, I think people forget your brain is the biggest muscle in your body. And it's the
Yeah,
one thing that will, I mean, we're only using 10 to 15% of it to begin with,
exactly.
right? So if we just really harness and go for it, it's like there's no limit to any of it. Like you said, human beings are completely possible of doing absolutely anything. And we see it all the time. I mean, when I see a rocket go up into the sky, it's like that's crazy. I mean, that's like I'm home putting electrical tape on things hoping that it works. These people are making this massive like monstrosity that's going to other planets that we can't even fathom. It's
Yeah,
crazy, you know?
yeah. I love that you mentioned that we use 10 to 15% of our brain. Like we don't even understand what it means to be human. We're just scratching the surface of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And our genius and our abilities and for people who are, 50, 60, 70, 80, there's this whole like, oh, you should just stop and slow down and it's like because that's what happens. Well, no, that's what we tell ourselves
Yeah.
that happens and it doesn't have to.
Right.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that you're excited about that too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
There's a and I can't think of her name. There's a woman, it may come to me as I say her quote. She says, "We're so much more than a bag of bones that we drag around, like this whole like poor sad tomato thing, right?" And Jean Houston, that's her name.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful woman. So when I think of myself, it depends. It's like the whole I ego thing. Who is me anyway? So that opens a huge door and it takes me back to Rumi of like this incarnation bodysuit that I've chosen to wear today in this lifetime. She doesn't have so much of a there's lots of identities that she trots out and puts on there for people like, oh, now I'm the podcast guest and now I'm the dance teacher and now I'm the this, right? So there's lots of identities that she could claim, and when it comes down to it, she's a part of this larger, beautiful thing that we call life and humanity. And see, the angels are going ding.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, I'm part of the whole, and I'm here for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's important that I do what I came to do, not just for me, for the whole, and also for me. So it's a both and with that. So I'm a part of the whole.
Yeah. I totally get it. So if anyone wants to hire you, they want to reach out, they have questions, any of the good business, where do they go?
Well, we have a podcast. People could find us on our podcast. It's called The Soulful Leader, and it's all about doing leadership differently, from literally from the inside out.
Yeah.
And my personal website is Maren Dance, MarenDance.com. And yeah, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and small businesses. That's kind of our zone.
Okay. Perfect. Maren, this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Hey, Joe, it's been great talking with you. Thank so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.